let's start off by talking about the stock market investing plan. So what we want to talk about today really is we want to talk about the different elements that we have in our stock market investing plan. And then we're going to go through what we prioritize within those elements. And then we also will have the different elements of our investing plan to share with you guys. But just to know, I mean, just to give you some insight into how this will work once the program starts. Once the program actually starts, you guys will have an electronic version of this. So we have it in, the Google Sheets and then PDF also. And it's for you guys to have to sort of look as sort of like a baseline or reference. But we always tell people we don't want you to use this to do exactly what we did because everyone's in such a unique situation. You guys are investing at a different time, things like that. So this is really to help you understand how we built up our plan and what the elements that we have in our plan and why we prioritize these types of things. With that being said, let's talk about our investment plan and then we'll go through it. But we want to first point out the different elements that we have in our investment plan, and then we'll go through each one a little bit slower, just so you guys have an idea of what we're talking about when we say these certain things. So for our investment plan, and this is the same type of investment plan that you guys are going to be building in the program as well. It's one element of the program. But for the investment plan, we're talking about our philosophy towards investing. We have our FIRE number. We have the reasoning, and meaning the reason behind why we're investing in the way we are investing. We have our goals, our investment characteristics, time horizon. We talk about our risk tolerance, asset allocation, how we plan to rebalance, our market crash strategy, mistakes to avoid, order of investing. And then of course, we also include our different specific investments. So that if you guys have followed us, for example, VTSAX is one of our really big investments that we invest in. So it's us itemizing every different investment that we're making. And so we have a list of different types of investments. If you guys follow us, you know that the things on this screen are not all the types of investments that we make. There's some on here that we don't have in our portfolio, but it's here just as a list to show you some of the different types of investments. And then at the end, we'll actually go over the specific investments that we made on our FIRE journey.
Yep.
So let's talk.
Wait, can I say something about the?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm seeing you guys' questions about specific investments and accounts, and I'm not ignoring those questions. I'm earmarking them, and we will get a lot of those questions are going to be answered during the presentation. So that's just a note for you guys that are asking about the 401k and things like that.
Okay. So let's start off with our philosophy for investing. And if you guys have followed us, you probably already know what our philosophy is, but we also think it's really important to sort of write out our philosophy as part of our investment plan, which you guys will ultimately be doing also. But in terms of the key components that we included in our philosophy of how we want to invest, we've written down things like we want to make sure that we have a long-term approach when it comes to investing. So we're thinking long-term. We're not thinking about, okay, we want to invest for this year doing this way, the next year doing this way, in this way. We're thinking long-term for our investments. And it's really because we want investments that are sustainable, that will allow us to sustain ourselves now that we no longer are working as federal employees. And then also, we've always really focused in terms of our investments on diversification. We've loved the concept of having a diverse portfolio overall so that we can minimize some of the risks that we have with investing in the stock market. And then again, we're always talking about low fees and tax efficiency because that's really important to us. It's something that we keep our eye on when we're investing because we don't want those things to sort of eat away at our investments or the growth of our portfolio.
And like Christina said, if you guys have been following us for a long time, you can hear our philosophy in our videos. It's been very, very consistent throughout the years, and it's always been the guiding light with our FIRE journey. And so you guys really need to think about this. Are you investing for the long term? Are you trying to make money fast? So this philosophy is something that is going to really set the tone for how you invest.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm like, I can't read that very well, but the question is, how long is long-term for you guys? And this is part of the plan too, is making you guys think about what type of time horizon do you have? So in the plan that you guys are developing, we break up time horizon into 3 different categories. So it's, do you have a short term, do you have midterm, or do you have long term? So for us, long term is 10 years or more, and midterm is about 5 to 10, and then short term is more like 1 to 5. And when you guys are building this program, or when you guys are building your investment plan, so we lay that out, and then we also talk about some of the different types of investments that someone would have for a long-term approach, for midterm or short-term approach, based off of their time horizon, based off of their risk tolerance and things like that.
Their withdrawal strategy. So several factors. Oh, the FIRE number.
The FIRE
sweet number.
Okay, so the FIRE number is definitely in our investment plan. It's something that for us is really important, and we have you guys calculate your FIRE number as well. But the idea is, for those of you that aren't very clear about your FIRE number, what it is basically, it's the amount of money that you need to retire. And so we talk about it as it relates to the amount of money that you would need in a stock portfolio. And then we also talk in the program how real estate can impact that number, and how you have real estate that can change the number, and how it can sort of play into the fact that you're going to be collecting potentially profitable income from real estate, and how that impacts your FIRE number. But because we're focused on the stock market investing plan right now, we're talking about your FIRE number as it relates to investing in the stock market. So for those of you that aren't familiar, we'll just go over it really briefly. What it is you're looking at your expected annual expenses in retirement. You're projecting that number, you're going to multiply that number by 25, and then you get your FIRE number. That is the amount of money that you would need in your stock portfolio in order to reach FIRE, in order to have all of your expenses paid, because you have this amount of money in a stock portfolio, and it's based on withdrawing 4% from this portfolio in order to pay for your expenses.
Now, everyone should know their FIRE number. In fact, we had 3 FIRE numbers because your FIRE number is really dependent on where you plan on retiring. And so for us, we identified 3 locations around the world that we were considering retiring to. In the end, we shot for a FIRE number that was at the highest cost of living place that we could potentially retire to, and that was the San Francisco Bay Area. We ended up retiring here in Portugal, but let's say we would have based our number off of retiring here in Portugal. We got here and hated it. We would be stuck here in Portugal because we wouldn't have enough assets to be able to support us in a higher cost of living place. So, like I said, calculating your FIRE number is so important, because really it's your freedom number. If somebody acts up at work and you just want to quit your job, you'll know whether or not you have that financial independence to do it, or how much more longer you have to put up with their mess. So that is, for us, having that number in mind, it was a really powerful number. And as we were going through our stages of FIRE, I remember we got to a point where we were like, you know what, we should just go to Thailand right now. We don't need that San Francisco number, but we stuck with our plan, and we achieved our ultimate FIRE number.
Yeah, I think it's cool because I'm seeing in the chat, there's people, listing off their FIRE number. It looks like, there's different ranges. One person had asked, how do you approach your investment plan when you also have debt? So that is also a part of this program, where we're talking about debt payoff, and what type of debt do you need to pay off, or what type of debt should you pay off on your FIRE journey, right? Because a lot of people have similar debt in that they have a mortgage, potentially they have student loans. Sometimes people have credit card debt. And in the program, we talk about this concept of having debt on a scale, like what's considered okay debt and what's considered bad debt that you really want to pay off on your FIRE journey. So that is part of the plan. If you have debt, that plays into you calculating your FIRE number. So when you're talking about your annual expenses in retirement, that payment of the mortgage or the payment of your student loan, that comes into play there.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we have in our plan is reasoning. Okay, so this is really about when you're on your FIRE journey, you have money that you can invest in different areas, right? Maybe you want to invest in a business, maybe you want to invest in real estate, maybe you want to invest in the stock market. So whatever you decide to invest in, you really have to have, what's the reasoning behind that investment? So you're not just, oh, I'll throw money here, and see what happens, right? So we have an element in our investment plan where we just talk very briefly about the reasoning behind why we're investing in the stock market. And so, for example, we talk about accessibility. It's something that's easy to get started with, as opposed, we did, just to be clear, we also invested in real estate, but there's a difference between investing in the stock market where you can start with just $1 versus investing in real estate where you're going to have a more significant down payment. So that's one of our reasons for putting money towards our stock market investing. And then we also wanted to point out this concept of, just being very clear that we're not going to get to FIRE, when we're on our journey. It wouldn't be possible by just keeping our money in a savings account. Investing in the stock market to us was a smart alternative to just letting our money stay in savings, because there's so much growth opportunity with the stock market as opposed to just savings. And then, of course, with the stock market, it's a much more passive investment, especially the way that we invest. And we'll talk about that when we get to the actual types of investments that we made. But it's much easier to have a passive type of investment plan versus investing when we were doing all of our renovation with real estate. And it wasn't that we were picking one over the other, but we just wanted to keep in mind that, we can take profits from our real estate that we're working really hard in, and we can move it over to this passive form of investment.
Yeah, the reason, to me, that's something that can be just summed up. We don't want to work forever, right? At a certain point, we wanted to stop working. And so our reason for investing is that we wanted to stop working and we wanted our money to start working for us. And there's no other way that you can do this unless you invest. If you put money into a savings account and it's been sitting there for the past 2 years, you've lost 9, 7, 8% on that money. But if you were investing that money, that money was working for you. And so it's so important that people are able to make this jump. We know people that are really, really good savers, but they just can't bear the anxiety or the stress of also investing. And so they're not able to make that leap into opening an investment account, putting their money to work. But we hope that with this program, with the knowledge that you're going to gain, the financial literacy, the background that you'll develop when it comes to investing, that you'll feel confident in order to make that leap. If you were a good saver, you'll be an amazing investor. Those people, you always hear those stories about people that paid off like $200,000 worth of debt. I get excited about that, because that means that now those people can move that money that they were paying off debt into their investments, and they're going to invest $200,000. And it's just like, there's the snowball right there. So it's so important. The reason to invest is that you want your money to eventually work for you.